You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
Hello, welcome to Japan Eats. I'm your host Akiko Katayama, a food writer and the director of the New York Japanese Culinary Academy, which promotes deep understanding of Japanese cuisine in America. We are broadcasting live from Brooklyn, New York. This show is all about Japanese food and food culture. We see sushi at every day on supermarket, but what is beyond sushi? We hear dashi ramen izakaya, but what exactly are they? Japanese food is still a mystery for many people, and I try to demystify it in this program with my cool guests. And my guest today is Daniel Bennett, who is a sake sommelier at Sushi-san and the Omakase Room at Sushi-san in Chicago. Both are part of Let Us Entertain You Restaurants, which is an independent, family-owned restaurant group that owns, manages, and licenses more than 110 restaurants nationwide with over 60 concepts, ranging from fast casual to fine dining. Daniel is a certified sake sommelier and has approximately 15 years of deep experience working in Japanese food and sake. So today we'll discuss how he built his career in sake, what types of sake people are drinking in America right now, his collaboration with 200-year-old sake brewery to make a private label for his guests, how he trained his staff to get certified as sake sommeliers, and much, much more. But before we start, Japan Eats is available on Heritage Radio Network website, as well as on iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify as a podcast. So please go to iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, whichever you listen to, and subscribe to Japan Eats. Please write a review. We truly appreciate the feedback. Now, let's start a conversation with Daniel Bennett. Hello, Daniel. Welcome to the show.
Hello, Akiko. Good to be joining you.
Right. So this is exciting. You have so much to share based on what you do and what you've done. So to get to know you first, where are you from and what did you eat when you grew up?
Sure. So I was originally born in Iowa, and I often say not too many sushi bars there. So come a long way to be a certified sake professional and to be working with Japanese cuisine and in the omakase room.
But you didn't eat anything Japanese related, right? Just maybe on some TV or some kind of very indirect experience?
Just a young adult hanging out with friends, and one of the friends introduced me to a sushi restaurant in central Illinois. And the staff was just, from that very first interaction with Japanese cuisine, it was about the people, and everyone was so warm and inviting. And that was the beginning.
That's very cool. And you have a very strong background in fine art. So how does that affect your life, seeing the world?
I often say that there's a story in every bottle of sake. And for me, it's important to, in conversations, remember that someone is performing a craft for the kurabito, from the toji, even to the farmers. People are using their livelihoods to produce something. You could argue that their art form is the nihonshu, or if it's a spirit, or even the chef creating the food that you're enjoying with the sake. So I see my background in art as a way to have a message inside of something that's being shared.
Right. It's interesting because Japanese people do not proactively try to share that long traditions and history. It's kind of like you don't do that. It's not a very cool thing to do in the Japanese old mindset. But
Yes.
now I think it's responsibility to share that something, it's been hidden, but it has to be shared to continue its tradition. And you are the person who can translate with your unique point of view to the world. So
Thank
that's
you.
awesome. Yeah. And you work at one of the most popular companies in food and beverage business. So how do you get into food and hospitality in the first place?
It was a love of Japanese cuisine. The newness was it was incredibly eye-opening. Growing up, my parents were a little less than adventurous for what they introduced me to. The American chains Ponderosa and Chi-Chi's were kind of our Friday nights out. And when I became my own young adult, exploring and going into new adventures. And I think a lot of us do that when we're out on our own. And um, sort of that first Japanese sushi restaurant was just really a wonderful place, and coming in with fresh eyes and really just trying to show the respect back that I was given was the very beginning of my exploration of Japanese cuisine and Japanese beverage.
Mm, right. And how did you get into sake in particular?
I had been working when I was in college. I had been working at a sushi restaurant. Then I moved to Chicago, and I had the experience and started working in a very premier sushi restaurant. Then I would always ask the chef, anytime if there was kisu, if there was a wabi, any new ingredient, I would run over to the chef and ask him for the background. And one day he got frustrated and told me, stop asking so much questions about the food and to go into the sake cooler and learn about the beverage and tell him. And I took him very seriously.
Right. So yeah, he wanted to get rid of you from his kitchen. Too busy. So now that's the good turn for your career because now you really
Yes.
are an expert. So okay. And so what you is your responsibility at the Let Us Entertain You, and what is your mission?
So my day-to-day responsibilities is a manager at Sushi San and the omakase room at Sushi San. Um, The beverage program is something that is near and dear to me. And so buying, designing the menu, um, we do many, many different features. And within Let Us Entertain You, there's a lot of experts who are in my same position. They manage, but they also have passions, whether it be um, sort of the American whiskey program at Bub City. They have a huge selection. So anytime there is someone who has questions or just wants exposure to sake or Japanese whiskey, I'm more than happy to share my knowledge and my experiences. But the beverage programs at Sushi San, the Omakase Room, and we're expanding those concepts as well. Those are my main day to day responsibilities.
Mm, right. And so what is exactly the concepts of sushi-san and the room at sushi-san?
Sushi San, we like to say we're all about hip hop and hand rolls. We take sort of the best parts of an izakaya, but we don't use the traditional sort of izakaya food. We also like to incorporate high level execution of sushi. I remember when I first walked in to explore Sushi San and was thinking about maybe working there. And I was so impressed with the quality, especially with the bluefin and the chef's techniques and preparation. So it has a very fun, energetic, vibrant setting where people can come together without having to offer what I think a lot of other places do. They cut short on the quality of the cuisine. So all the chefs and partners are very passionate about the food. And omakase room, um, I'm so happy to see that omakase in the United States has become very popular in maybe the past 3, 4 years. I sometimes say that there are omakase that, while not in Osaka or in Tokyo, people executing omakase in the United States can sometimes go a little overboard with the reverent quality. And we, at the end of the day, want guests to feel comfortable in dining with the omakase experience. So we tend to take almost like a dinner party approach where people come in, they may know each other, they may not know the other guests in the room, but by the end of the meal, the chef and all of the guests are sharing the experience of the cuisine and the beverage together.
Interesting. So it's kind of you're in charge of two contrasting different concepts. So izakaya basically is a really casual place and people gather very casually. And basically when you say izakaya in Japan, it's more like Japanese beverage and food, more traditional. And they say that Western style izakaya, but sounds like you have a more traditional Japanese style izakaya and kind of with quality than regular izakaya in this country that you see.
Yes.
So, right. And then omakase, on the other hand, that's omakase means leave it to the chef, meaning, it's more intimate and it's kind of like personalized experience. Usually omakase sounds like it's really expensive, which probably is true, but it's a more curated experience. That's a very different approach to spend time at a Japanese restaurant. So yeah, it's cool that you're in charge of those very contrasting different concepts.
And as so, sushi-san was the initial concept, and it actually was born out of a ramen concept that we did for lettuce. So there's ramen-san, which does the noodles, and then sushi-san does the sushi and robata. Um, when we were opening the omakase room, drawing from my own exposure, little by little, year after year, I saw sort of both the omakase room and sushi-san existing on a gradient. So no matter who you are or what night you're looking for to experience, we have everything in between omakase and izakaya for you to enjoy. And it's the same guests, which is wonderful, where they will on one night join us at sushi-san and at the next night join us in the omakase room, which is wonderful to have that great breadth all in one building.
Interesting. Wow. So I was going to ask you, do they have different clients? And it sounds like it's really overlapping. People really know Japanese food and they just pick and choose the time and feeling of the day.
Yeah.
So,
Definitely
right,
visit sushi-san more often, and then on special occasions, the omakase room.
right. Okay. So we'll take a quick break here. And when we come back, we'll dive into how Daniel collaborated with a 200-year-old sake brewery to produce a unique sake label for his guests. So please stay with us.
Today's program is brought to you by Korin, a supplier of Japanese chef knives and restaurant supplies. Korin is proud of their Japanese culture and traditions, but they want you to know that their products are not just for Japanese restaurants. Their knives and tableware bring out the best qualities of food from every culture and fit into every restaurant from French to Pan-Asian to American. And that is why they're located in New York City, where people from every country in the world come to eat. Korin's Tribeca showroom is home to the most extensive collection of Japanese chef knives in the world, including Japan. Stop by to view their exquisitely designed tableware and the rarest natural sharpening stones. They have a whole range of knife services from repair and rust removal to reshaping and realigning. Korin is dedicated to this ideal, bringing the highest quality Japanese design to your table so you can experience the unparalleled quality of Japanese craftsmanship in your home or restaurant. For more information, visit Korin.com.
Welcome back. You're listening to Japan Eats on HRN, Heritage Radio Network. I'm your host, Aki Kotayama, and my guest today is Daniel Bennett, who is a sake sommelier at the Sushi-san and the Omakase Room at the Sushi-san in Chicago. He's a certified sake sommelier and has approximately 15 years of deep experience working in Japanese food and sake. So there are different types of sake, and everybody has different preferences. So what types of sake do you offer at your restaurants, and what types of sake sells most right now?
Yes, I say we do focus on sort of jizake. We have some notable brands, which is great for the guests to recognize.
Right. So
So
what
it's
is
not
jizake to define, first of all?
uh, so a local or sort of handcrafted. There are breweries that produce large volumes of sake to be enjoyed in the mass market, and there are many wonderful versions of that. But there are, of the 1,000 or so breweries, there are many family breweries that exist in one location and have a small production amount. And those are sake that we love to share and sort of give a little voice to in our restaurant.
Each kind of jizake brewery tend to have very limited, or sometimes 5 or 6 different pipes, but you have to choose out of many, many options, right? So what kind of, say, top 5, which types of sake? And maybe you can just give us the basic
Yeah,
explanation of each type.
What I love to introduce someone who maybe has had the Nagori or cloudy style sake, or maybe has only had hot sake, which is usually that mass produced style of sake. If I'm introducing them into something that I think is not too polarizing, something that they don't have to think too hard about, but will be really refreshing, is a Junmai Ginjo. Um, it's often has some stone fruit or maybe cantaloupe to it. I find that a lot of guests, especially if they enjoy white wines, this is a natural segue for them. Um, we go very premium with Junmai Daiginjo. The texture is kind of unmatched. When you're enjoying sashimi with the very focused flavors, it's nice to have a selection of Junmai Ginjos because their flavors are not over the top. They're really focused and elegant. We also do have a large amount of Junmai and Hanjozo um, because not every glass of sake needs to be the most expensive sake that you've ever had. I kind of say it's like being in Italy. You have to drink wine with every dinner. So having the most expensive bottle at every dinner can be very costly. So Junmai and Hanjozo offer a wonderful way to enjoy sake throughout the entire meal. Um,
Mm.
and we like to do a few others every now and then. We have one sparkling sake. And whenever the season is appropriate, namazake is really wonderful to introduce, even to first time sake drinkers, because of the bouquet and the flavors that are very present in namazake.
Mm. Right. So nama is unpasteurized, so it's like a fresh, really like raw, like sparkling, bursting flavor, right? And you created private label sake called Sake-san,
Mhm.
and in collaboration with Daimon Shuzo, or Daimon Brewery in English, in Osaka, which is available at Sushi-san and also Makashiro Sushi-san and other places I heard. So first of all, what type of sake is Sake-san? And why did you want to create the private label sake?
Yes. So sake-san is Junmai Ginjo made with Yamada de Nishiki. You wouldn't know the more subtle notes just from the label, but uh, Daimon Brewery really uh, adds a lot of umami, and they really try to craft their sake to be food friendly. Um, so that has really, I think, made it a very successful sake for us. And that is kind of, without knowing it, what we were looking for when we first set out to have a private label sake. Um, so a lot of places, whether it's a restaurant or a bar or beverage group, will look for a private label sort of as a vanity project, and that wasn't the intention that we were looking for. It was mainly that there was a limiting selection of sake that was available, not only in the US, but we're right in the middle of the country in Chicago. A lot of the sake goes to California or New York and New Jersey. And often we're the last thought of an importer thinking of what sake they want to select from Japan.
Hmm.
Of the 1,000 breweries, let's say each brewery makes 10. All of that sake is available in Japan, and one importer would go on a visit to Japan, maybe select five, six of those sake from the entire selection of Japan. So I knew there was more than just what was available in catalogs. So I asked our distributors and mainly our importers, please send me all of the sake that is not available currently in the US or through your portfolio. And that began the journey of tasting and seeing what might work for Chicago.
So I didn't know that really skewed distribution depending on the region in America, which is a shame, even for your company, big company. So yeah, and then actually Diamond Brewery is a well-established great sake brewery. and whose history goes back to 1826. I know that because the brewery's CEO, Marcus Consolini, who was the first non-Japanese person to take that position in the sake industry, joined me on the show in episode 214. And I was fascinated by him and also the mindset of the master, Toji Yasutaka Daimon. He's so open-minded, flexible, and forward-minded. So, yeah. So, by the way, how did the collaboration with Daimon Brewery happen to make sake-san?
So, a big amount of credit is due to Monica Samuels with Kome Collective. They have, speaking of importers and curated lists, they have an amazing selection. And I asked Monica, I said, I'm looking for something a little more. And so she was really pivotal in going to the breweries and finding certain selections that they weren't necessarily ones that they brought on. And we tasted through about 2 dozen sake. And what I will say about it's with sake-san, the beverage that was going to be sake-san, was every single person that tasted it really enjoyed it. They thought that it was something that they could see themselves drinking pretty much every day with every meal. Um, then we needed to talk to the brewery. So I myself tried to come with the utmost respect in even asking that maybe this is something that we could collaborate, knowing that this was that craft, that handmade, that special thing that was being produced already, and to ask for, in essence, a privilege. So it was talking with Marcus and uh, really getting to know him and letting him know who our company was. And we had some wonderful conversations before there was even the moving forward with production. It was about getting to know each other.
Right. It's such a cool story by itself. So, yeah. And then, how do you feel about the products?
I to be honest, I'm very overwhelmed every time. I kind of look and I see actually how much we are serving. I really wanted Chicago to have sort of its own jizake or local sake. Um,
Mm.
Chicago has great beer. We're an amazing food town. We have, deep dish pizza and Chicago are synonymous. And sort of the dream in my mind was, my love and passion for sake and the joy I get from sharing it. If there was a sake that really represented a lot of the interests and the culture of Chicago, but came from halfway around the world, that would just be a wonderful uniting beverage for Chicago. And after we decided we wanted to go with sake-san, we did a little research and found actually that Osaka and Chicago have deep roots together, actually sharing sister city status. And the connections just kept going and going and going. And speaking with Daimon-san, really learning about Kitano and Osaka and the region that he's brewing, we found so many similarities to the people that lived in both places, Osaka and Chicago. And so we wanted Sake-san to be a bridge between the two.
Right. Oh, that's interesting. I mean, the Dodger Stadium started to serve. Will start serving it started maybe, and the Hakkaisan Brewery is going to be the official sake serving at the stadium, and also the Oscars started to serve Dasai sake at the
Yes.
reception and the party. So it's happening, and the sake is becoming in the Midwest. Even maybe you're going to start as a part of your company, making start a local brewery, sake brewery.
When I get introduced as a certified sake sommelier and having, credentials, the very next thing I say is I was born in Iowa. And
Ooh.
letting everyone know that we all start somewhere in our journey for our passions. We can all be experts, but we were not inherently born with that knowledge. And it was really our curiosity and um, credit due to your podcast and sharing information. No one has exclusive rights on uh, scratching that curiosity, and so sharing it is really a great joy. And hopefully Chicago will be a place. Maybe the Cubs should start having some sake available.
That sounds like a dream, but it may not be too far. So, yeah, that's amazing. And I think, because you are from Iowa and you didn't know anything about sake, you have more objective view and knowledge that you can explain to other people, which is harder for Japanese people because they don't even question. So, you are very important to be as an ambassador to educate people. And you are in the middle of what you're doing as a professional. So,
Well, thank you.
yeah. And you have some on your menu, you have some sake cup, like cup sake or cup sake, people say. So which I found very cool. So what is cup sake and what is special about it?
Yes, and we even go the distance of sort of creating our own special relationship to it. Referring to it as kapuzake. Um, so sake cups or one cups, as I understand, and from my travels, are very popular in Japan, especially say like in the metro or the train stations for somebody who wants something just really quick and doesn't necessarily have the time to sit and have washoko or sit down for an omakase, but really wants to have the unique flavor and the refreshing quality of sake. Um, so in Chicago, we have Metra line, and you're allowed to have a beer. And on the Metra at 5 p.m., there's you hear the brakes release the and then you hear the next noise is a of maybe a PBR opening up. So the working class in our cultures, the idea of having a happy hour, or as I understand, Niigata, the sake capital of the world, if you're at the base of the mountain and you're about to go on the ski lift, having a nice kapuzake in your jacket pocket could be
Mm,
refreshing to warm you up. So they're really approachable, very small unit measurements to enjoy sake in settings that aren't necessarily sit down restaurant style.
right. Oh, by the way, if we have that happy hour in New York subway, that could be, I don't even think. That sounds scary to me. But, oh, that's very cool. Um, yeah, and there's an interesting history about Kabusake. It was born originally in 1964 and produced by the Ozeki Sake Brewery in
Mm.
Osaka. Actually, it's really major still. And back then, people were drinking sake poured into a glass or, like ochoko, or and serving vessels like, tokuri from a
Mhm.
big 1800 milliliter or 61 ounce bottle. And the company came up with the idea to sell sake more by putting it in a tenth of that size, 180 milliliter glass jar that you serve as a cup sake. And that was, I think, they happened to find the jar maker imported from, I think, England to
Mm.
put jams and marmalade. And it's like a nice, clear looking glass. And the company put the logo of Ozeki on the glass. And as a result, you can really market what they are drinking. And it's really small and stylish and traditional, but at the same time, it's now the new cool thing.
I would even say that we embrace the kapuzake so much. Stay tuned, because we are absolute fans of Miyazakura. I think Panda Cup is one
Mm,
that is very popular. Yes, we have lots of demands for people just wanting to have a good time, and it kind of is a signal to
mm.
just raise a glass, kanpai, and enjoy as you like.
Right. And also, there's a resurgence of kapsake in recent years because of the fun, like a panda or anything you put on the label. And a lot
Mhm.
of people keep the glass because it's so cute. So, yeah, it's great that you put this kapsake on the menu to introduce how fun it is, not
I think
approachable.
even in sort of in the Midwest, there is that tradition. I remember most people, their grandparents might remember it was those jelly jars. A lot of companies would have nice vessels, and they would have their branding and have the baked on enamel, like the painted style. And then after you're done with it, you kind of keep it in the cupboard, and you have little memories and trinkets. So I think that's something that we connect with as well, from halfway around the world is something that we share.
Right. So now, by the way, you have many interesting items on your menu and beverage menu. And so who orders sake versus other types of drinks such as beer, wine, cocktails among your guests?
I think it group settings are really wonderful for guests. Usually it's one person who says kind of, hey, we're having sushi, and that creates the setting of really wanting to have the full experience of, the rice for the sushi, with the su, all the way to the beverage. So everything at the table really having as much of a Japanese origin from the products, a Japanese origin from the tradition making it. Just the other night, we had a couple come in, and right away it was just two of them, but they ordered 4 glasses of sake. And that lasted them the entire meal because they really wanted to, for themselves, experience the different types of sake. They didn't
Mm.
have much experience with it, but they were feeling adventurous, and they wanted to see, what the different styles could lend and how they might enjoy the different selections we had.
That's very cool because I think as a retail shop customer, it's hard to do the thing, and you kind of like lead them um, what to taste, how to compare. So that's an important role as a sake sommelier. So yeah, that's interesting. And so another thing at Sushi-san, there's a sake bomb on the menu, which was invented by American people, and Japanese people may find it almost disrespectful to the pressure sake making tradition. And knowing you, who has main menus, I have a lot of respect for Japanese sake. What is your intention to serve sake bomb?
I think with the sake bomb or kapuzake or pouring sake sort of by the glass, what we're really looking to do is to meet the consumer where they are. So oftentimes it's that they haven't really had the opportunity to have an experience with sake, where somebody would show them something. So a group of guests who coming out and they have a lot of energy. Often that's the group that would do some sake bombs. They really want to have a great energetic time, and we try to use as quality a product as we can. With the beer we use for the sake bombs is acai, and that is where the conversation begins. And from there, we really want to broaden the experience that the guest can have with sake. Um, the style of sushi-san is one: low lights, hip hop music, good times. So we try to use the best that we can to offer our guests for what they're looking for. And from there, that's where the stories can kind of unfold. So with sake bombs, it's just one thing that the consumer may know. But from there, we can kind of begin to, in small ways, educate and really show guess what is possible for the Japanese food and beverage that we're serving.
Right. So that's an easy entrance. Yeah. And then I heard I used to be very, very stinky, low quality sake, just guaranteed to have a headache next day, kind of sake mixed with beer. And of course, you do not have good memory of sake, but it sounds like you serve quality sake and you can still make it as a good entrance to enjoy quality sake. So yeah, that's an interesting idea.
Absolutely.
Right. Um, and I have heard about non-Japanese restaurants serving sake in these days. And so you have many restaurants in your group.
Mhm.
So do you get to be asked the advice for those non-Japanese restaurants?
Yes, I think really chefs kind of led the way to incorporating Japanese cuisine, ingredients and techniques. Really, food. People have to eat at least 3 times a day. Um, Having the introduction of Asian and especially Japanese ingredients at some of the best uh, tables in the entire world also had sommeliers, also had guests who wanted new experiences, asking, well, if we have these sort of, we're in a Western restaurant, but they're serving us, yuzu or haritogarashi or sambal. Is there a beverage that might complement this food as well? And the answer is yes. So the flavors that can be found across the world, there are some links, and sort of that's the beautiful match that can happen between sake and, I guess, Western style cuisine. Um, Finding, the fat, acid, sort of the flavor profiles, the aromatics, seeing how those link together creates a third thing between the food and beverage. And it's really exciting to pair sake with non-Japanese food. It really has some wonderful opportunities.
Do you have any examples that you give advice for as a dish?
So there's a couple. One is this. I can't remember who told me this, but Yamahai sake is not a grade of sake. It's a style of making where you invite, in essence, wild yeast into the sake, and it creates almost this kind of zippy, lactic style sake. It goes amazing with pizza.
Mm.
Think it's the cheese. Maybe it's the acidity from the tomato sauce. But there is, you know, Yamahai sake I often say to pair with Japanese cuisine, um, like the cooked, the robata grilled items, even some meats. But something about Chicago and pizza and Yamahai is a wonderful combination.
Right. So that's the Chicago's official style of sake, Yamaha. Wow. And I heard Yamaha in America is becoming really popular. So I think it's a very cool thing. And you may want to see at, restaurants or retail stores. I think Yamaha is more available
Yeah.
nationwide,
And
right?
what I've found, and a lot of credit due to importers making brave choices, where Kimoto and Yamahai, if you ever see those on the label, they're a little atypical of the grade. So if you think that you love a Junmai Daiginjo or a Daiginjo because it's very elegant, if a brewer were to make a Kimoto style or a Yamahai style Junmai Daiginjo, it would have a notably different quality to it. There's some exploration, I think, in being able to taper the amount of influence that the wild yeast or the lactic bacteria has. So I found some Junmai Ginjos, Junmai Daiginjos that are Kimoto, but they're very nuanced. So they have even more depth without being overpowering, which again lends it to be able to be paired with much a greater variety of cuisine.
Hmm. Right. And Kimoto Niamhai is a kind of ancient way to produce sake. It was pre-technology and it's a natural way. It's not inoculated by, commercial yeast. And it's amazing. I think the resurgence of the popularity because of that rich flavor. So yeah, listeners, Yamahai, Kimoto, these are something. And the pair with pizza. That's interesting. Yeah. So how, you've seen the tradition and transition of American sake market over the past 15 years or so. So how do you see the change of the market in terms of the types of sake available, the level of interest and knowledge, or anything you observed?
Yeah, I think there's a couple different ways to measure the change that's happened. I've heard it from your guests before on the program that there's been a sake moment happening, but it's been happening for about 10 years now. Uh, so everyone is kind of seeing changes happen, but it does seem that maybe the past 2 or 3 years where, um, you know, guests looking for a drink are a little more open to exploring and being shown different options. I think for a long time, going with what was being marketed just kind of stole people's attention. Where I think now consumers are very well educated and are also more open to trying different beverages. And I think sake has been in the outer circles of people's knowledge for a long time. And since there has been a market, mentioning New York, mentioning California as really holding up sake and introducing it to Michelin starred restaurants, I think it's something that people feel that they want to know more about, and that begins their journey. Um, so yes, even in the Midwest, in rural parts, you can find really amazing selection of sake. And I will say one thing: domestically produced sake is something that I think is really being advanced, and there's some really passionate people seeing if they can bring the traditions, bring the respect to producing sake just domestically in a way that is very similar to a kura in Japan producing sake for the community in the area. And so I think that's a really exciting thing that's happening in the past 5 years.
Right. It's sake is a local craft beverage like beer, which is happening. That's incredible. And I think Brooklyn Kura, the first sake brewery in New York, started to export to Japan, which is incredible last month. So, yeah, it's happening. So, how do you envision sake in America in the next 5 to 10 years?
I think it being available, I think, is something that you will begin to see at different restaurants. I really think that local bottle shops, as we call them, places where you can go and buy something for your home, I think there's always been or rather recently, there's been a growing share of the shelf space that has been more global rather than just France, Italy, domestically produced items. We're seeing a lot of different sectors of Asian spirits and beverages be represented. And I think sake for a long time has been the marker of really quality produced beverage. So I think having the supply chains there, where importers are more educated and well versed, having salespeople, whether it be at restaurants or at retail shops, being more versed leads to a consumer that is able to make choices for themselves and find something that they truly enjoy. Obviously, I hope and know that that will be sake, but being able to show the guest something that may, bring them joy, even if it's not something that they've had in the past, is an opportunity that sake definitely fills for the guest.
Right. Yeah, there's been a really a big misunderstanding. Sake is kind of spirits, which is distilled and much higher alcohol, but it's like wine, right? So that's the beginning of education, and then you can drink it without being hard liquor drinker. And
Rivet.
sake is like wine, and that's like a beginning of a lot of people even don't know that the truth. So yeah, and it's sake available here, is becoming more and more high quality, and even sake bomb can be really a good experience. So no headache. Um, yeah. So and I heard that you're in charge of training your staff to be certified as sake professionals. So could you tell us about that?
Our staff is, I would say they're on the younger side, which kind of matches the energy and curiosity. And there is no short supply of engagement from our staff wanting to know personally about sake. Um, so we have many different outlets to where our staff can empower themselves. So on a daily basis, we have very short meetings where we introduce new items, and we're constantly changing, whether it be in the omakase room or at sushi-san. We're introducing new beverages and rotating the menu. So daily we do that. There's also weekly and monthly, we call them san beverage sessions. So anybody in the company can come to one location. We all meet together. It can be as many as 30, 40 staff members. And we invite special guests. One special guest that came 2 weeks ago was actually Marcus.
Oh,
So Marcus was doing.
Diamond Brewery.
Yes, so our
Wow.
staff, they had only ever heard my version of the story. So it was really wonderful to hear. In essence, we did bill it as come, hear the story about Sake-san, but I wanted Marcus also to tell the story of what is it to be a Kuramoto. We talk so much about Toji. We talk a lot about the culture of sake and the place that it's made. But, there is a president who has choices that they need to make about what sake they're going to produce. So it gave our staff, who's very young and curious, what does it mean to own a brewery? And that was something Marcus definitely could speak to. Um,
Mm.
so we have professionals in the industry. There's a distillery here in Evanston, which is a suburb of Chicago, and they actually have built for themselves a koji room.
Wow.
So there's cedar lined walls. They steam the rice. The distiller and a lot of the researchers there have purchased different types of kojikin, um, and they've done the research of really seeing what can happen when they make koji. And when you take koji and you can distill it, there's actually a product that they've made that is a whiskey that incorporates koji, and it has a taste that is beyond any whiskey I have ever tasted. And that is where you can really see the flavor and the presence of koji. So taking the staff there, they've read about koji, in sake. They've read about uh, you know, the Tojis using koji, but for them to actually see it and see it growing on rice was something that not many people ever get to experience in their lives.
Wow, that's interesting. I wish I was there too. I'm curious about that. Yeah, the koji I think is a keyword in not just in beverage world but the culinary world too. So yeah, that's interesting. Wow. So do you think you're gonna be more future sake sommeliers?
Yes, and I'm sort of leading the charge on that. As I mentioned, no one has exclusive rights on knowledge, and it's really the individual. Seeking out more information. That's what I hope to be able to offer to, whether it be a guest, a staff member, anyone I'm having a conversation with, and I learn at the same time. So recently, we had a group of staff members, including some managers who are in leadership positions, who said, I really want to be able to answer any question about sake that I am given. And I said, well, I can teach you so much, but there are wonderful resources out there. And one of the best that I knew of was John Gottner's Certified Sake Professional course.
Mm.
He bills himself as the, foremost non-Japanese expert on sake. And I think that, world renowned, puts his knowledge. So we had 11 of our staff members go through John's course, and luckily they all passed.
Mm.
But they had an amazing time learning from his breadth of knowledge. And so having 11 different people within our organization be able to speak about sake has 11 different perspectives. And
Mm.
that, in essence, is something that we really enjoy. We don't want for sake to be one thing. It can be many things to many different people. So having a group be able to share their knowledge, maybe they'll uh, talk to a table and inspire somebody else, and that person becomes a huge fan of sake and be able to share their knowledge and experience as well.
Right. So 11 new seats. And John Gontner, and he spent years and years in Japan, and he's one of the most updated persons on sake world, including Japanese people, because he's so well connected. And yeah, and he's really a true person, and it's fun to be around. So
Yeah.
yeah, his courses I've never taken his course, but I'm sure, it's a really a good experience. I think his course is here in America and in
Mhm.
Japan too, right?
Yes, yes. he and John does. I mean, if you're interested in sake, getting involved in the community is. I will say that I've never met somebody who is self-professed sake fan who is who doesn't want to ask you your opinion on something. The
Mm,
openness is just absolutely wonderful. And in larger cities, it's a little easier, but you can seek out events. There are all kinds of tastings. I think John is a big proponent of sharing the information in whatever fashion that is. So when you go to these events, there's often people who know a little something that you can learn, and like I said, they want to know it's a community. Sake brings people together as an excuse to have conversations over a glass of sake. Um,
mm,
and really some advice that was given to me early on. You don't have to take uh, a established credentialed course. The best advice I ever got was never pass up a glass of sake that's offered to you. And typically what that means is that there are going to be so many different types of sake, and no sake is the same to the other next to it. And it's a journey. So while
mm,
you may not particularly enjoy one style of sake, there is one down the road that will bring up an inspiration for you and really will kind of bring you joy. So trying
mm.
them all just means that you'll find the one that you personally love.
Right. Yeah, and I saw statistics, pretty recent one, and I think 90% of sake breweries, remaining sake breweries, around 1,000, 90% they're family owned, and that's why they're struggling to continue their business because of, it's very labor intensive work, and also the market is very competitive. But having someone like you abroad, sake export is really thriving right now, and you are really making people more aware of how amazing sake is. So yeah, I think what you're doing is very valuable. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
So what are your plans and dreams?
Plans. There's actually some visits to Japan upcoming, and having conversations with guests visiting us. We've been very fortunate, and I let a lot of our importers know when they have brewers or Kuramoto come and visit the United States. We enjoy hosting them, at the restaurant, if nothing else, just to get to meet them. But going and exploring and learning a family business's story in their home is really special. So I think this year I may be able to visit Japan twice.
Mm,
Uh, so going and of course going to different kura, and I think, have a trip coming up where we may be able to visit some different types of industry. But having conversations, getting to know individuals and what they do for a living and what they're excited about is incredibly rewarding and very fulfilling. So trying to have as many of those moments as possible is definitely my plan and my goal. Uh, Putting pen to paper about where that is and when that's going to happen is the logistics of it all.
right. Oh, that's exciting. So yeah, keep me posted. Maybe you can come back and share all about the new discoveries in different sake
Yes.
breweries. Right. All right. So where can we find your updates online and on social media?
I'm most active on Instagram. I always try to share the latest experiences or the best bottles that I've had lately, and that's Kanpai Guy, KANPAI_GUY. Um, and then the Let Us Entertain You blog or at the Real Sushi San are wonderful places to see any events that we have planned. In May, we are actually having 4 brewers come, and we will have an omakase. And the special pairing for the evening will have each of the sake introduced by the person who made it. So
Wow.
events like that will be featured on those outlets.
That's amazing. All right. So, yeah, thank you so much for joining us today. And Daniel, keep me posted and we'll keep talking on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you, Akiko.
Thank you. So listeners, if you have any questions or comments about the show or suggestions for short episode guests, please contact us at japaneats@heritageradionetwork.org or akikotema.com. Japan Needs is a weekly program and is always available at heritageradionetwork.org as well as on iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify as a podcast. Our engineer is Gabriel Jean, and thank you for listening. I will see you next week.